Doing all
Wait,
right.
we're talking about The Idol? Is that what you're...
Surprise.
No, we're talking about an iconic film of the early 2000s. The follow-up to a film that would go on to become a cult classic. Well, not really cult classic, but a film that's franchise that has managed to last 20 years. And we are talking about Too Fast, Too Furious.
So wonderfully
Directed by the late great John Singleton, starring Paul Walker and Tyrese
Rest
Gibson.
in peace, King.
Yeah.
Yep, rest in peace, King.
Rest in peace, sir.
And this is the film that takes the concept of the first film of we'll do street racers doing crimes, and we'll basically make this a 2-hour-long Miami Vice episode.
Pretty much.
Yeah,
also,
actually.
Yeah, pretty much. Also, Paul Walker did a lot of his own stunts. That 180 scene, he actually did it himself. And
that is kind of amazing.
And apparently the insurance they had to pay to even get that to happen was super expensive. They had to go through a lot of hoops because Paul Walker's like, I can do it, and it's going to be cool, and I want to do it. I don't want a stuntman to do it because I love cars, and I want to do this shit. He loved cars, man. He died the way he lived.
So much I can say about that.
But let's be real. This is pretty much like what Tom Cruise is tempting fate on for every mission possible. He
does, and he scares every producer that's under him.
Yeah, so like
every producer's under him.
Yeah, under him, over him, on his sides, watching
behind him.
Behind him.
Yeah, that too.
Allegedly.
Don't want to get sued. Don't want to get sued.
Allegedly. But yeah, so we put this on the poll because we did a poll on Twitter about what was the first movie that we should review for Pride Month, and we put stuff on there like Brokeback Mountain. We put on. We are working on one right now that has stuff like I Love You, Philip Morris, and we kind of put this one on there as a joke, as like. This is a movie that has kind of been joked and talked about as a movie that is kind of up there with Top Gun, as it's a movie that is so focused on hyper masculinity that it kind of circles all the way back to homoerotic, especially in most of the interactions between Paul Walker and Tyrese. Like, and I have a clip here that I think kind of captures it perfectly.
Whatever happens next, just let it go. I ain't in it.
You fan?
Whoa!
It's like, no, it's like his ex-boyfriend.
Right?
One of my homeboys called me wrong. Pig.
Ooh, snap.
Not a cop anymore, bro. Is that true?
Oh shit!
It's like you
Blind
look
to
at
hear, not a
the
cop anymore.
eyes.
That's true. No bad.
Those aren't the I'm gonna fuck.
He's
you
really
up
happy to
eyes.
see what's gonna happen.
He's giddy.
He's giddy
He knows.
with anticipation.
They
It's like
know
that,
what's gonna happen.
bro. That fucking nod. It's like that's not the go ahead and take a swing nod. That's a
come get some.
That's a drop them pants, big.
It's
boy.
amazing
Oh,
Paul
no.
Walker's not wearing a skin or Volcom shirt. It's
That,
like
hey,
a
I think,
what?
Or
I think
Limp
that was
Bizkit.
before those were like a real thing.
Okay, yeah, I grew up on
Yeah,
the
'cause
Central Coast, and
yeah,
that
this
was
was-
like
this
the
was
thing
what, like
everywhere.
This was like what 2002 or so.
That sounds right.
It is.
Yeah,
No, it is.
2004, I think.
Wait,
It's
really?
Smack dab. It is smack dab in the early 2000s, and
Oh,
it
God.
feels everything from that trailer to the font. Everything screams.
so
We
good.
got this on advanced video toaster, and we're cranking this
Oh,
up, and we're
yeah.
zooming in, and we got the angles for days, boys. We have the angles for
great.
days.
It kind of
But-
feels like one of those parody trailers that they show in those like early 2000s ads. Like you would download a car.
Right.
Feels
Oh,
like one of those.
I should be watching this on Real Player.
You really should. You should have the
Like,
VCR
it's-
effects on it, like you recorded it back, and like when VCRs were starting to fade out, or the scratches on the DVD.
Oh,
It's
sorry.
it's so amazing to think about that first Fast and Furious where they're still in those TV VCR combos, and you're just like, oh yeah, I remember those.
I remember
It's like
those
how
days.
quaint-
It was
how
like a
quaint
sandwich.
It's like how quaint it was. It's like the craziest these movies got were like ejecto cars,
Ejecting them out of the car, yeah.
ejector seats, jumping a car onto a plane, and also let's not forget this iconic moment.
I mean, stopped it perfectly. To be fair,
Did the stare and drive on you, didn't he? He got that from me.
It's like,
so
God, you know what?
you could read that so many ways, but one of them is like, that's my man.
That's my
so,
man.
so let's be clear. So
Yeah.
Okay.
So the first Fast and Furious is incredible in how much of a time capsule it is,
Mhm.
because that's
Yes.
exactly what it is. It is a perfect time capsule of films in that era, and the mini films that tried to rip it off. Like
It was Point Break with cars.
yeah, like Torque comes.
yeah,
to
Or
mind.
Torque. Oh my God, I forgot about Torque.
Remember that Torque?
God
Oh yeah,
damn
man,
it.
I got you,
Yeah,
Dusk. I got you,
yeah,
Dusk.
God, I forgot about Torque.
Yeah, it's Point Break with cars, and because
How
of
do you
that,
have
there's
a
like
Bud Light of a Bud Light?
it's like there's a beauty in the simplicity of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's how simple that first movie is, and rewatching the second one just today, I was taken back. I was like, this movie is actually a really good time, especially because cars actually feel like they have weight. There are stakes to a lot of the stunts. They feel
Yes.
dangerous.
Yeah, it's funny because it does that zoom in on the engine that always just makes me roll my eyes but laugh at the same time. It's like, oh, it's so good. But the big thing that kind of has driven me nuts, about the franchise in general is there's this point where Dom just feels so like there's no Captain America to check Tony Stark, and Tony Stark is Dom in these movies. Like Dom is infallible, he's never wrong. And when Paul Walker passed, the series really lost that person to check him, which is really important.
Yeah, and I remember talking with a friend about it and really thinking about it. It's like so much of the franchise's like grounding character is Brian.
Yes.
It's Paul Walker. It's like he's the first character that we meet in these movies. He's the one that we followed through all of them except for Tokyo Drift. And he got the biggest character arc and growth in the final movie. And, and that movie is not just heartfelt because he passed, but it certainly didn't hurt it.
Yeah.
And after that, these movies just kind of became soap operas with like half the logic and twice the budget.
I mean, you're not wrong. I mean, I enjoyed Fast 10 quite a bit, but I fully acknowledge, as we just mentioned, that Brian kind of being the conscience of the franchise, you do lose something by not having Brian around. What I really love, and I mean love about this movie, I'm blanking on the name of the short film that's in between this and Too Fast, Too Furious.
Oh yeah,
But-
it talks about Dom.
Yeah, but they make Brian a fucking racer. Like he's actually built up. Like it's kind of like that short film with like a Need for Speed game because it builds up his prestige. So when he actually shows up in Miami, he's actually has street cred and actually has cred among the community as far as being a great racer. Which is something that
you have side characters like Michael Ealy and David Aoki kind of taking a step back when they realize that the fourth guy in the race is Brian.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where you go, that's so cool that he's built this prestige and that he has kind of become almost like a local legend as far as within his community, which is so cool. And I really wish they would have tapped into that more because Dom always beats Brian, and to be honest, he shouldn't. Like it's really irritating that Dom always has to beat Brian. It's like
it's
at
in
some
Vin Diesel's
point,
contract.
I mean, I know.
Yeah, it's in the contract. He can't win.
He can't lose a fight. He can't lose a race.
The only time he wins, the only time he won is in the 7th movie when they're saying goodbye and he leaves the earth.
Yeah, but it's just like, god damn, like, could you let this motherfucker? But
I know.
But when he shows up, you're like, okay, the stakes have actually been raised. That's really fucking cool. And we kind of have to talk about this too. the FBI, the only
Yeah.
fucks Brian so much, and so when he goes on the run, it's kind of like how Bond, like you remember in Die Another Day when
I
it
do.
was just kind of like, we'll just let Bond get tortured for 5 years, fuck it, like. And then Bond's kind of like, wow, fuck am I 6? And she's like, oh, what's wrong? It's like, you let me get tortured for 5 years, you bitch. Like the way that they set Brian up to fail in the Fast and the Furious and where he ends up, it makes total sense. Because he was set up to fail like a motherfucker in the Fast and the Furious. So when he just goes, fuck this, I'm going rogue, I went, yeah, that actually makes total sense on why you would do that. And it actually adds to his mythos, not even really necessarily the franchise's mythos, but to him as a character.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what I love most about this movie is that because Vin Diesel, dropped out to do was it Chronicles of Riddick that he dropped out to do?
Triple X.
Oh, that's right. It was
Triple.
Oh, yeah,
this was right after Triple.
Speaking of James Bond,
James,
in a time capsule.
You are not wrong.
James Bond drinking nothing but Mountain Dew.
Mountain Dew. Don't be a dick.
And probably some monsters.
Remember when he had charisma?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Things I do for my.
Vin Diesel dropped out, and the character of Rome was originally going to be Ja Rule's character from the first movie.
So yeah, let's talk about that, please. So we were talking about it in the chat that I have. So they were going to bring Ja Rule back. So he got paid $15,000 for the first Fast and Furious. For considering he's on screen for 10 minutes, I'm like, that's a good payday.
He did give us one of our most iconic lines.
I mean, true, but he's not in the movie for long.
No.
So here's the thing. He was offered $500,000. $500,000.
This is Ja Rule at the height.
Yeah, and this is like Ja Rule at his peak. Yeah,
which means he's at peak ego.
This was pre-Firefest Ja Rule.
This is
exactly.
This is pre-Greek local Greek commercial.
Oh, that's right. Oh, you're not wrong. Oh, I forgot about that. Well done.
I will never forget about that. Neither will 50 Cent.
But this is Ja Rule. You're right, at his peak, and so apparently, because I was looking this up, Singleton called him personally, and apparently went to the studio in New York to talk to Ja Rule, and Ja Rule blew John Singleton off.
Yeah,
which is insane when you think about the fact you're going from $15K to $500,000 in a franchise. As I was reading up on this, I went, "You dumb motherfucker! like, why would you not take this?" And so apparently, Singleton called Ludacris, called him once, and Ludacris was like, "Oh yeah, dude, whatever you want me to do, I'm there." And now, how many years later, Ludacris is still playing Tej, and you're just like,
and completely broke the franchise's logic as well, because it started off with them playing "I Got Hoes" and Area Codes in the first one, and this movie needle drops, and it's a banger of a song. Act a Fool in the opening of the movie.
Act a Fool is a top 10, if not top 5 Luda track. It's a great fucking song.
Yeah, and it kind of breaks me because Luda's character Tej is also there at that race where they are playing the song. So who sings "Act a Fool" in the Fast and the Furious universe?
It doesn't matter. Just stop.
No.
They don't
want
care.
to know, damn it.
It's in his head. It's in his head. It's playing a different song, but he's like, "This is the song that I wrote."
Is it like an American Horror Story situation where you have the same exact actors and barely any makeup playing different characters?
Yes. They did this before. They took it away from them.
It's such a hilarious moment when you hear it. You're like, wait, that's Ludacris like rapping. But the thing I really like, and I mean love about this movie, and I do think that like Fast 10 does get back to this a little bit, but the actual racing culture is really well explored in this movie. That's something that I actually appreciate. The fact that it's kind of like, it's similar to, I would compare it to something like N1 back in the day, where basketball really felt like a community with N1, and it's very similar here with the street racing community, where it's like, oh fuck, you got me, but I'll see you next week. Like there is very much a community within this sport. Something I really like, which they also kind of bring back, and I want to say it's Furious 7, or maybe it's I think it's Fast and Furious 6. But they bring back the whole concept of like a disc being able to like shut down a car. I mean, I think they're using like the arrows, I think, in this one, but that's a really cool like thing. But when Brian sees it, he's like, "What the fuck?" He's like, "Oh shit!" Like it's a really interesting thing that that's introduced, and Brian is able to get rid of one of those in a way that you go, okay, dude, you've clearly done probably, what would you guess, 80 races in between the end of the first film and where we're seeing you now. Yeah, easily, possibly more. And it again, this it's like this is the best. Like, and I love you, Aaron Paul, you're great. But this is like the Need for Speed movie that, like, this is a Need for Speed movie. This is the closest thing you'll get to, like, a true Need for Speed movie. Right down to the neon coloring, which is awesome. It's clean. Like, it's obnoxious, but in the best way.
They missed the Need for Speed. Like, making a Need for Speed, I'm happy to see Jesse and getting his way to try and be Need for Speed. I love the actor. He's great. But no offense, sir. That franchise died along. It's being catered to, puttered barely going forward. That was a early 2000s to 2013. It had a stamp of expiration, and then after that, it kind of became something else. And those guys aren't into the same thing. They're still the racing track, but now they're legitimate. There's not really the underground the way it is, because now it's got corporatized. If they go in that direction, it's like, we need to bring it back to when it was the community. Then I'm like, okay, we can kind of roll with that, or make it cops and robbers kind of thing again. But you can't really do what they did. But honestly, I like the movie. It's fun. It's a fun little buddy cop movie, like they were doing back in the time. But you know what? I think what made it really for me was just the way Roman. I miss Roman actually being kind of treated somewhat seriously and being kind of like respected in the community and area, instead of always being taken as a joke. I'm like, bro, he was in like the first couple of Fast and the Furious. Don't you remember the shit?
He was in the second one, and he was one of the highlights of it when you kind of lost that initial dynamic between Brian and Dom. It was like it wasn't.
Oh, it's coming! My favorite line.
Man,
Drop it. I don't want to talk about it.
Drop it, hell.
My favorite line.
I want to hear about this, homie.
I said forget about it, cuz.
Yes! Forget about it, cuz. I was about to bring it up. I actually had my notepad, and I was actually going to say, because I wrote that line.
Oh, it's so good.
It's my favorite
West
line.
Coast Shoppers, too. Let's go.
West Coast Shopper shirt.
I said, forget about it, cuz. And he delivers it. And without cracking a smile, without like bursting and laughing.
Stone-faced completely.
Honestly, if you just played me that line, I'd be like, man, I would so invite Paul Walker to the cookout. I'm like, if like to say that without cracking, without a sense of irony, it's like, okay, that's genuinely impressive.
The highlight of this movie is the dynamic between Brian and Roman. It's like they're back and forth. They really make this movie, and so much of that I think is Tyrese having this great screen presence, this great comedic timing.
He punches guys. He's actually kind of treated somewhat seriously. But this movie also reminds me of kind of like it feels like a better, because it was able to incorporate the cars and the racing and kind of having a previous movie relied on mythos, and it came out just around the same time as other movies, like but not as good, like Simon Says or one of those other ones.
Oh god, I remember Simon Says.
Yeah, where they nuke the cola and they're in a coliseum and there's a tiger and it lives on a landmine, other crazy stuff like that. And buddy cop movies where they were just doing it all the time, 24 Hours. That was like the first. was always
One of
a,
the big
it was
ones,
always
yeah.
a black guy and a white guy because they were
Lethal
getting mad.
Weapon.
Yeah, Lethal Weapon, because they were getting mad at the reasons apparently why they started doing that was apparently a lot of people were getting mad that they were only doing blaxploitation to try to get it with a lot of money, and so they're like, we want to be in legitimacy, and so they cover their ass. So like buddy cop movies.
Okay, that
And
makes
then
some
and then
sense,
when buddy
actually.
cop movies of black and white started being like a, not that people didn't have a demand or a love for it, it was, they just studios weren't doing it because it wasn't as profitable, and then they did it,
Yeah.
and then they realized, oh wow, we can make a lot of money, okay, let's do that. And then we're like, well, what if we do a black person and an Asian guy with Jackie Chan, and when we do that, and Chris Tucker with Rush Hour, and then after that it's like, well, what if we put like a person and a dog and see that work? And then it's like
We're kind of jumping around it.
and now circling
Right.
back, what if we put them with a bunch of Transformers and CGI? What if that works?
So real quick, the villain, that's Carter, right?
Yeah,
Um,
Carter Verone, who is an Argentinian gangster raised in
So-
Miami, played
so-
by an actor so white he has a regular role on Yellowstone.
No. He's a guy from Miami Vice. He's one of the drug dealers from Miami
Oh.
Vice.
Yes.
Oh, son of a bitch. That's funny. So I want to talk about him real quick because the Fast and Furious, that is kind of one of those things where there's like, it's kind of like Pixar's Brave. Like there's kind of a villain, sorta, kinda.
There's one that's barely there, but we also
You're welcome for that. By the way.
yeah, but we also
what a-
never
what?
really remember this franchise for the villains.
But exactly. But there's really not. It's more of a concept of villain.
Mhm.
This guy in this movie is a fucking asshole because there is this fucking rat scene that
Oh.
that legitimately still, when I go back and watch this, I go, oh man, that sucks. Like I'm just like, oh, that's a really, really shitty thing, and I would be very. I mean, granted, it's a corrupt cop, so boo hoo. But at the same time, it's like. This guy will fuck you up, and he actually feels like a threat, which I actually appreciate, considering where the story ends up going. We haven't mentioned her yet, but I don't understand why Suki hasn't been brought back yet.
Oh, Devin Aoki?
She gives me kind of Ruby Rose, John Wick Chapter 2 vibes. Is she Chapter 2, right? I think it's Chapter
Yes,
2.
It is the
yes, she was in
second
Chapter 2.
Correct.
Yeah, where it's like she doesn't say a ton, but she does have a very natural screen presence to her. And her and Tej actually work really well off each other. Tej clearly wants to hit that. Who can blame him?
Oh yeah.
But there's an actual like kind of like Mr. and Mrs. Smith kind of like give and pull to that relationship that I'm like, that's fun. And she doesn't come back. And I don't really know why she doesn't come back. She's not written off or anything. She just doesn't come back. And it's like, well, that feels like a missed opportunity because even when she's racing, let's call it what it is. Some of the women in the franchise have not been known for the racing skill. Like they just kind of got around to making Letty like a good racer, but she's good from jump. It's like, okay, so like she wins a bet like pretty quickly. You're like, oh, okay, like she can actually fucking race, and they don't really do anything with that. It's like that sucks. Like that feels like something you could have developed.
That feels like no offense. That does feel like in hindsight, looking back, because at the time they're like, what are we catering towards? What's our audience?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
like, oh, the chick, oh man, the girl can race. All right, that's pretty cool. So about Brian and Tyrese Gibson, about Brian and what's with the Argentina drug dealer? It would have been a surprise and nice if that was a continued character. I mean, shit. At this point, for Fast 11, they could bring her ass back.
They should.
Yeah.
Like there's
If they brought back Gal Gadot somehow,
Yeah, like
I don't know how. Like, there's a couple of things you could bring people back, but
Yeah.
Gal Gadot.
she
Unless she's
looked
a
like she
clone.
was-
Unless we're going with clones.
I mean, the
At this
series,
point-
this franchise has become nothing but a soap opera. So I imagine it's just Giselle's twin sister.
Yeah.
Oh my god! If they pull a beer fest with that shit and they go like I'm her twin sister,
And I love
It
that
is.
that's the
It'll
joke in
just
Beer
be
Fest.
like it'll just be like a Hispanic telenovela where it just be like a Rosa de Guadalupe. When's the next episode of Rosa de Guadalupe?
oh my god! If they pull that shit, but
Yeah.
but she's great, and Michael Ealy, I know we mentioned him a little bit, but
Mhm.
I love that he's been like that mixed race dude who's appeared in all these movies where it's like, oh man, why is Dennis Quaid trying to get my girl? Like he's not
why won't Hillary Swank leave me the hell alone?
like that's been his career for the last like decade. You know, good for you, brother. Get that check. But he's actually like he's a very naturally charismatic guy, and you don't get a ton of him in this. But that first initial race is really fucking fun, and the actual like kind of surprises that Tej brings up, you're like, oh wow, that's actually fun, and it actually gives the race some weight and actually gives it some suspense. Because I mean, are you pretty sure Brian's gonna win? Yeah, probably. But at the same time, there are enough twists and turns thrown in there that you're kind of like, oh wow, like you actually have to be. Which brings me back to the whole Brian being a skilled racer. It's like, oh, you have to be able to adjust on the fly, which is what so much of this franchise has become built around. And again, shows why Brian is such a great racer when you actually, write that in. Also, this movie in particular kind of shows you where we're heading because the stunts do get more insane. The whole boat thing.
Yeah, they get more insane, but they still feel somewhat grounded.
Yeah.
It's like the characters themselves are like commenting on how insane it is, like the whole jumping the car to the boat, but there are physical consequences. Like Roman breaks his arm in that stunt. If that happened, it's like in the ninth
now
movie,
he dusts himself off.
In the ninth movie, he gets shot multiple times. He has a fully armored tank car fall on top of him.
Yeah.
Not a scratch.
Yeah. Or when Dom gets dropped out in the most recent movie out of a goddamn plane, lands on another car, crushes that car, but his car's just fine. No, the difference between these kind of movies was, and I'll say it, CGI wasn't at an abundance. And so a lot of it had to be physical stunts.
Oh, yeah.
And because it's physical stunts, you end up feeling and caring a lot more about what's happening because, even though that thing looks like cardboard and the stuff is being scrunched up on it, it fell off. Oh, some of the car fell off. Oh, you're actually turning adrift. I have to set the camera so the car turns to adrift because we're doing real stunts. Yeah, when you're behind the wheel of a car and you can kind of CGI BS yourself with low cutting angles, you don't really get to see a lot of wide turning stunts, which make you feel like you're along with the journey. And I did revisiting it made me realize how important that actually is. Showing damage for your car helps a lot.
Yeah, and something that is really striking to me is like just with the most recent one with Fast 10, everyone was kind of like, this is just okay. But a thing that was getting universal praise was like that one moment in the Venice chase scene where it's like clearly a practical stunt of hopping a motorcycle over a fence. It was like, wow, that was so fucking cool. And there's no way they could have faked that with CG.
Yeah. So real quick to just kind of talk about Fast 10. I enjoy Fast 10 quite a bit. But Momoa goes a long way for me in that movie because he's the best thing about it. Like
he knows exactly what kind of movie he is in.
Exactly, and it felt like. So I mean that's kind of the closest the Fast franchise will probably ever get to Infinity War. Like I mean like that's kind of what it felt like they were going for. But that whole Venice chase, the reason I love that so much is because Letty shows out in that. Letty almost gets Dante, and you're like, oh shit, like if by really shitty circumstances by the cops, go figure, you actually would have caught his ass. It's like, oh, okay, I appreciate that. And everything in here, especially near the end where they get away from the cops, it's such a clever way they actually do that. And again, going back to that community aspect where you go, oh wow, that is actually horribly well done. And they actually had a plan. They weren't just like, well, we're gonna kind of let the physics or lack thereof save our asses. It's like, no, we actually have a plan. And so when they actually execute it, you go, oh, okay, that really works. The other thing, Dexter's dad. Oh my god,
James,
fucking
James
Agent
freaking
Markham.
Remar.
Oh my god, he almost gets them killed at least twice in this movie, and Roman, rightfully so, flips the fuck out. I went, I'm really happy someone is actually, because Brian's kind of a douche when it comes to the cops because that's his job. Roman has nothing to lose, so Roman's like, motherfuckers, why are you trying to get us killed? I mean, okay.
If we're getting into the couple dynamic, Roman is clearly, the power of that.
Wow.
Yeah.
He's clearly the powerful one.
Brian's the
He's
pretty
like,
one.
he ordered onion rings, man.
That's true. He did order onion rings, and he stole it from him because one of my favorite lines when he's just like, "Hey, that's my lunch." So
Yeah, no shame. Just flat looks him dead in the face.
you almost got us all killed.
Hey,
You asshole.
He hungry.
You hungry?
And there is this like, so it's really weird. I think people forget Tyrese was like is like a singer, kinda, sorta. Like I could not name the Tyrese song. Like gun to my head, I'd be like, Icebox No to Marion. Fuck. Like I could not name you a Tyrese song, but he has a natural charisma, kind of similar in that vein to Momoa. Where he just also baby boy rules, by the way, but he's great in this, like down to his cut off denim, like horrendous vest, which my god, like that's such a brave look to attempt, but he pulls it off somehow.
Hey, it was the 2000s. It was a different time.
I mean, you're not wrong, but
Showing off his blouse,
yeah, but he is actually a breath of fresh air in this franchise, and for the most part, that's actually one of the biggest complaints I had about Fast 10 is that I just didn't think him and Tej, their friendship was funny. Like their jokes just didn't land for me, like which was kind of a bummer. But for the most part, Roman's been hilarious through like pretty much all of these, and you get to see that genesis of him in this, and you only fight with someone like that with someone that you love, and you start to feel that as the movie goes on. You go like, okay, there's clearly some still unresolved shit between the two of them, but they're working through it while working through this whole mystery, and it's actually really fun to watch, and it's rather endearing, honestly. Slightly gay too, but it's also very endearing.
A little bit. A little bit.
Gay.
Yeah, there's a reason that even though we did kind of put this up as a joke in our first Pride Month poll, there's a reason it still won.
Yeah, it's if the Road to El Dorado had cars, it would basically be Too Fast and Furious because if you have not watched the Road to El Dorado in a while, first off, it's a great fucking movie. I think it's on Hulu actually, but it's one of those movies where you only bicker with someone like that where there is that unresolved fill in the blank. And when Roman kind of explains how Brian screwed him, you go, phrasing, you go, okay, that's an actual legitimate reason to be pissed off. But given the circumstances, they kind of need to push that shit to the side. But Roman has his back. Like, despite everything they've gone through, he has his back. And as the film goes on, and as those walls start to come down, and the danger mounts, and they start to work together more, it's one of those things where you go, man, I really want them to pull this off, which is really, at the end of the day, the best thing you can say about it.
Yeah.
So it really works in that way, like above all else.
Yeah, it really works with that character dynamic. And just my final thoughts on this before we move on. I hadn't seen this movie in a while. I just mostly watched it through the clips that everybody kind of makes fun of. Like the whole forget about it. Forget
There's
about
a lot of those.
there's a lot of meme-worthy stuff in this movie. But beyond that, this is a very solid episode of Miami Vice, and something that I had a unreasonably good time with rewatching it.
Yeah, I rewatched this about a month ago, right before Fast 10. I did a rewatch of most of the movies. Man, the Fate of the Furious just ages worse and worse for me. Like it's just like the more I watch it, I'm like, God damn, Dom is just basically Thanos, and it bothers me.
Yeah, he can do whatever he wants.
It bothers me that one scene where they have his car harpoon and he still gets away. I just roll my eyes at that. Like, give me a fucking bugs the fuck out of me. But
he's not allowed to lose a fight.
Yeah,
Can't
exactly.
lose a fight.
But
Not allowed.
But the way that Roman actually sticks out up for Brian in a way that Brian doesn't really stick up for himself, but you see Brian start to kind of get that confidence and go like, no, I need to actually, kind of start checking people. Everyone kind of needs that friend like Roman and needs that friend like Brian. You need that someone to kind of balance you, to balance you out a little bit. Yeah. And where the film ends up is such a cool, like, oh, hell yeah. Like I love that this is where you're ending. And again, the neon Four Loko can on wheels aesthetic to this, no shame. It's wonderful. It's actually
kind of beautiful.
It honestly is, and it actually keeps your attention. The one tag team race they do is actually fucking thrilling. Like that's a full fucking race.
It's a fantastic set piece, and it's probably the best filmed race in the entire movie.
Yeah, and it's actually one of my. I mean, that's a top 10 race for me in the whole franchise, if not top 5. Like I love that scene because it gives you just enough doubt that they might lose. Like it gives you just enough to go like, oh shit, they're kind of fucked. And it's like, oh shit, they pull it out. Like there's a lot of moments like that where you go, okay, this movie just kind of keeps, kind of similar to like Transformers, like we just talked about. It kind of just keeps surprising you. And honestly, and I know some people won't want to hear this, this movie at least has an end, unlike the Fast and the Furious, where it kind of goes, but this ends in a way that you go, okay, cool. This movie ended, but you feel like it could still keep going, which is a hard balance to strike. But this movie kind of nails it. And this is actually the Fast and Furious film that continues to kind of rise up my rankings the more I watch it. Yeah. I'm like, oh, I kind of like, I find more things about it to like the more I watch it. And the soundtrack's really fucking great. Outside of just Act the Fool, it's a good soundtrack.
All right, Dusk.
I'm pretty much with a lot of you guys. Yeah, this movie is just dumb fun. If you want to see a early 2000s revival of Miami Vice in a movie,
There
you go.
So bad.
And all its glory.
Feature.
And you know
this
what?
Is a good double feature with Miami Vice.
It is, honestly. And honestly, have we really changed that much? All the people who did the neon stuff and cars, they just moved it to their gamer rooms.
Oh my god, you're not wrong.
Yeah.
Oh my god,
the more things change, the more they stay the same.
Oh man, we're getting that Pog revival next year.
Here we go. I'm looking at the fucking neon backlight on my TV.
I know Nick's looking around like, oh shit, do I have neon?
Oh god, you do. It's okay, brother.
You're
20 years ago, there were people doing it in a car.
Yeah, that's so. I know we talked about it real quick, but that zoom into the engine, that effect is so wonderfully cheesy. Like, and the fucking like random ass like hot girl in racer shorts, like in your GPS for no goddamn reason. if anything, that would distract you from driving. But just these bells and whistles that are just there to be bells and whistles.
It's just so impractical, but it's so cool.
It's so impractical. God damn, it's so much fun. It's so much fun. But at the end of the day, this is one of the better villains that the franchise has actually had.
Having a villain is nice.
I mean that too. But when he's actually like pissed off and kind of putting the gears to him, you're like, oh shit. And Eva Longoria, we haven't talked about her a lot. Her and Walker actually
Eva Mendes.
Oh, Mendes, that's right.
Longoria's
That's right. The Housewives, that's right. She and her and Walker actually have some really good chemistry here, and that was something that I, on initial rewatch or initial watch, wasn't really capturing. But Wait, didn't they bring her back? Wasn't she in like the post
They
credit
brought-
of like
Yeah, they brought her in the post-credit scene in Fast 5.
yeah, and then she just hasn't come back. So
Disappeared.
I-
They replaced her with fucking Elsa Pataki's character.
yeah, they're just like, you're good. Like, but I mean, bring her back. I mean, come on, Gosling's
Hey,
doing Barbie.
Hey, she's too busy riding that Gosling dick.
I
which-
mean,
Can't blame her.
yeah, good for her, good for you. Speaking of going too fast and furious, but I mean, I'm here. Why not? As far as a rating, oh man, this is such a hard rating to give because like it's dumb. Like I can't express enough. This movie's dumb as shit. But this is where my critic brain and like my enjoyment clash. So I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go like a really, really, really high stream it. I think that's fair. But man, like the more I watch this, the more I do find things to enjoy and laugh at and laugh with intentionally. But yeah, I stream it. This is fun. This is a lot of fun.
Yeah, I'm there too. This is a very high stream it. I wasn't a big fan of this movie when I first saw it when it came out, but over time and subsequent rewatches, seeing where this franchise has gone, seeing how kind of hilariously homoerotic it gets at points, it just becomes one of the more fun entries in this franchise to revisit. It's a very strong stream it.
Nice.
Yeah. I mean, pretty much we kind of come to the conclusion where this is very dumb fun. And if you just want to watch dumb fun, but with just enough of a capsule of time, just enough fun stunts in ways we honestly don't get as much in it. That's not too over the top, but feels just enough where they have consequences. I think you'd have a good time. Crack a beer, watch it, hang out,
Corona.
maybe Corona. Yeah, get yourself a Corona. And if you want, you can skip the third movie, or you could watch them in any order. Because at a certain point, as long as it's Paul Walker hanging out, you'll do all right. But this reminds me very of Point Break or Torque. If you feel fancy.
Torque. Oh man, Torque is. I have not seen that movie.
Or X or Triple X if you want to have a companion piece.
So Triple X is like, so I remember watching the first Triple X and being like, this is dumb. I think Triple X, the sequel, State of the Union, is one of my favorite bad, dumb movies ever.
Yeah.
Because, man, people forget Willem Dafoe's the villain in that. Everyone forgets that shit. Like
he's also the villain in Speed 2, but that doesn't mean anything.
I mean, true, but it's Ice Cube against Willem Dafoe. It's Are We There Yet versus the Green Goblin, the fight you didn't know you needed, but
don't be there when Dafoe gives his all in anything. He does.
That is true.
Man does not sleepwalk.
He does.
Yeah. But then you get Triple X, the return of Xander Cage, and then Ice Cube shows up again and drops the classic line, "Us Triple X's must protect our own," which is still.
And I'm just like, I thought you were gonna say he was gonna drop his famous line, "Today is a good day."
I'm sure when the check cleared, it was a good day. But goddamn,
it's always a good day when it clears. You just can't tell from his expression.
Oh,
yeah,
of course.
True, but yeah, well, check this out. That is one other thing too, just real quick. The way they show the cars, as far as the mods that everyone has, that's something they do better in this than they do in the first film, and that's something I actually really appreciate. Like everyone's car feels like it fits their personality, and I dig that a lot.
Yep. So that was our Pride Month review for Too Fast, Too Furious.